Welcome back to She Got Next. Episode 5 is already here. That feels crazy to say. Dallas, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So there's a lot to talk about today, of course. The first thing that comes to my mind is TCU women's basketball. I genuinely feel bad for this team. They're kind of having a season like UConn. They started off 14-0. They had a very strong start, but unfortunately, their team keeps getting hit with injuries. Jaden Owen just announced that she's done with collegiate basketball because she tore her ACL. Now, another player today, Deja, announced that she's injured and she's out for the season. And so they had to cancel 2 of their upcoming games because they didn't have enough players to go on the court. I've never seen that happen before. Have you?
No, I've never seen nothing like that. I mean, it sucks. I mean, I it was one instance in the men's game when Colin Sexton went to Alabama, where I mean they didn't have enough players, but it wasn't because of like injury. It was like foul out and injury. It was a combination, and they had to like play 4-on-5 or 3-on-5, but like not to the point where you can't even start the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, so they had to forfeit their next 2 games. And then their social media team just posted they're having open tryouts, which is insane to see, but they do need it. So they announced that they're having open tryouts for any student at the university. They're eligible. They said pull up and I guess just shoot your shot with the team.
Yeah. They might have a Joanna Man appearance. Got some guys pull up dressed as women.
That would be crazy.
That'd be pretty cool.
All right, so next topic. I'm not sure. Did you see the tweet from the People's Choice Awards?
I'm not sure. I'm sure you're going to tell me about it.
Of course I am. So the People's Choice Awards, they tweeted talking about the athlete of the year. And so they said, which one of these nominees performed at the highest level this year? Vote now. And they listed Coco Gauff, Giannis, LeBron, Messi, Sabrina, Simone Biles, Steph Curry, and Travis Kelce. And that just broke Twitter, essentially. A lot of people were like, okay, you mentioned realistically the best player per sport. But when it comes to women basketball, you mentioned Sabrina Ionescu, who you can argue isn't actually the best player on her team. And so people on Twitter were acting up. And then Chelsea Gray quote tweeted that and said, A'ja Wilson. What's your initial reaction to seeing that? Let me ask you.
Sabrina is a fan favorite. I mean, she has a lot of pizzazz and character when it comes to basketball. So, I mean, so I understand why the other girls are like A'ja Wilson. She's not the best player on her team, all that stuff, because they're facts. I mean, Breonna Stewart is the best player on the Liberty team, and I mean, if you're going to put Sabrina in there, you definitely should have A'ja Wilson in there, the champ. So it's only right, but I mean, it's people's opinions at the end of the day. So people are going to say how they feel.
She is a fan favorite, but the vote was for athlete of the year who's performed at the highest level. So I think it's a little unrealistic to mention LeBron and Simone Biles and Steph Curry and then not mention A'ja Wilson, who is a champion from this year, who was the defensive player of the year, who was the finals MVP, or Breonna Stewart, who was the overall season MVP. So to see Sabrina, it was just kind of like a little confusing as to why they would put her in that category with those greats.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just kind of like how the All-Star game used to be or still is. It's like it's a voting thing. So it's just people's opinion on who they like mostly because LeBron James, Giannis, or Steph aren't the best NBA players either. The best NBA player right now is either Jokic or Embiid. Especially last year, it was Jokic. So I mean, he's not even on the list. He's a little boring, but he's not a fan favorite. So I mean, I think it's just a vote on. I don't think the criteria is correctly. What's the word for it? I don't think it's the criteria is correctly enforced or stated. So that kind of has where the discrepancy is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's a good point to mention. It could just be about the fan favorite. That is true. Okay, so moving on. This clip was everywhere. Ashlyn Watkins had an in-game dunk for South Carolina. And so she was the very first South Carolina women's basketball player to have an in-game dunk. The last women to do those dunks in the SEC were Candace Parker and Sylvia Fowles, which was basically 15 years ago. Ashlyn is the eighth woman to ever dunk in a D1 game, and then only the sixth to do it twice. Then if she does it 3 times, she will tie the record. So definitely big shout out to Ashlyn. It was everywhere. But what caught my attention, Dallas, was this Dawn Staley quote. So she said, quote, yes, the fans get really, really excited about it, but we do see her do it in practice. We see her do it in game. I think it's cool in the fact that it's normal for us. We dunk in our game. I don't think it's anything new. It's a part of our game. What do you think about that quote?
Uh, I don't think it's just a normal part of the women's game. To be totally honest with you, like
Yeah.
Dawn Staley has like some, I don't know. She has some. It's like she likes a little bit of conflict. So I think that's just what the quote was more for. I mean, and I feel like she likes to feel attacked when she's not even being attacked a lot. But we don't really see women dunk often. I mean, Brittany Griner dunked when she was in college.
Mhm.
It's not really many dunks that women do. That's why they were talking about raising the rim down some for the women's games to make it more exciting. I don't know. I'm not opposed to that. I think it would be kind of cool to see like some cool dunks from the women's game. But I mean, the women's game is very exciting to me as someone who really enjoys basketball and understands basketball. I feel like it's very, very more fundamental than
Mhm.
the NBA game, and I appreciate that. Like the girls' skill level are sometimes higher than the men's skill level because the athleticism isn't the same, and it's really beautiful to watch how just the teamwork aspect, along with just the literally fundamentals and skills that the women have. Versus the men's game. I really enjoy the women's game. I go to a lot of the women's games during the year as well. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely echo what you say. When I interviewed Haley Jones from the Atlanta Dream, I asked her, I said, Patrick Beverly recently said in a podcast that he feels like the women's game is more difficult and that when he plays against WNBA players, he's like, man, these screens they're setting, these are hard. Ooh, that pick and roll, like that was a lot. And he said that they're very skilled players. So he likes to work out with women's players because it helps raise his IQ. And she was saying that's one thing that she's realized to be the biggest difference because in the NBA, they're big, they're strong, they're athletic. And not saying that the women aren't, but like you said, in the women's game, they have to focus on the fundamentals, the skills, the IQ, the gameplay. You focus on a lot more things outside of just, oh, I'm trying to get a poster on his head.
Yeah.
So let's transition into our athlete of the week. For me, my athlete kind of goes along with upset alert. So essentially, last week we talked about how there were 3 teams that were still undefeated. It was South Carolina, Baylor, and UCLA. Now, this week, of course, after we talk about it, after we hype them and we wish them good luck, there ended up being upsets. So before we get to upset alert, I'm just going to talk about my athlete of the week. I have 2. My first one is Tiana Jackson. So she plays for Kansas. Baylor was undefeated. Kansas ended up upsetting Baylor. They destroyed them 87-66. So my athlete of the week, one of them is Tiana Jackson. She had 27 points and 19 rebounds. That's a strong double-double. Not 10 and 10. She had 27 and 19. So shout out to her. She really led that team. It was a very intense game to watch. My second athlete of the week is a favorite of mine, Juju Watkins. I love Juju. We talked about UCLA and how they were undefeated, but then once these 2 California teams went against each other, it was over with. So Juju led USC to beat UCLA. She had 32 points, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks, 3 assists, and 3 steals. The stat line is crazy, but it's not crazy for Juju because she always performs like this. She is a phenomenal player. She's only a freshman, and I feel like we still talk about her all the time. She's been crushing it. So shout out to Juju. Love her. Dallas, what about you?
Okay. Well, my athlete of the week isn't the biggest stat line or anything like that, but I'm going with Jemiah Mingo Young of the Auburn Tigers. It's also tied to an upset that just happened. They beat LSU, the big dogs, LSU at Auburn, SEC play.
Mhm.
She ended up having 13 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. But she had 2 steals in the biggest steal of the game. In a 2-point game, Angel
Mhm.
Reese decided to play kind of the point forward position on the last play, had the
Mhm.
ball at the top of the key. She drove on the smaller guard and she stripped her clean and then went to the free throw line and knocked down the 2 clutch free throws to secure the win for Auburn. I just feel like being able to step up in that big moment in SEC play, going against one of the highly decorated players in the women's college basketball game
Mhm.
with all the publicity and everything going for her, just to be able to step up and be able to strip the ball from her with the game on the line. Because the refs call fouls for the star players, all type of stuff like that, and
Mhm.
just being able to have no fear, I feel like that was big. And then to knock down the free throws was also a big reason why she earned my spot for Player of the Week.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Coach Yo of Ole Miss said before, how she was saying when you play LSU, it's the LSU show, it's the Coach Mulkey show. So you definitely do have to give kudos to Auburn and the fact that they're like, okay, it's LSU. We're nervous, but we're not nervous. We're going to go out there, play our best, and upset this ranked team.
Yeah, for sure.
Shout out to Auburn. So now South Carolina is the only team that is left undefeated. I'm going to knock on wood just because last time things changed right after I said this. So I'm going to knock on wood, but I'm not nervous because South Carolina, they're a very strong team. They have very strong girls. Coach Staley, she knows what she's doing out there, and they're always going to crush it.
For sure.
And then last but not least, Dallas, since you are our sports betting expert, would you like to give the audience a free pick?
Yeah. So the free pick for this week will actually take place on Thursday, January 18th, and it'll be in the Oklahoma City game against the Utah Jazz. Last night, the Thunder played against the Clippers, and Shea Alexander actually got shut down. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Terrence Mann, all of those wing defenders over there for the Clippers were able to kind of hold them under 20 points. That doesn't happen often. So and Paul George had 38. So it's like Shea probably didn't sleep well last night, and he can't wait to play again, lace up his shoes. So I'm going to take Shea to score 30 points tomorrow. He's going over his point total. The Utah Jazz have been on this crazy winning streak. They don't have anyone that can even think about guarding Shea, and I know how he's built. He's built to score 30 when he just had a bad game. It's no way he's not scoring 30 points tomorrow. So that's what I'm gonna go with. Shea Gilders Alexander over his point total, and that'll be free. Super easy.
Super free, super easy. Dallas, thank you so much for joining me today on She Got Next, and I will see you next Wednesday.